I beat Pokemon Yellow with only a Haunter, so it seems only fitting that now I do a run with Kadabra. If you're new, playthrough rules and a whole bunch of other information can be found in the description. So let's talk about Kadabra as a Pokemon, because in Generation 1, this thing is actually quite good. It has a medium slow growth rate, which is the best one to speedrun the game with, and its base stats are very one-sided, but they're still good. It has 40 HP, 35 attack, 30 defense, so obviously those are the bad stats. And then the good stats are 120 special and 105 speed, giving it a 20.31% chance to crit. I'm also fairly certain that all of you will know that Psychic types are broken in Generation 1. The Ghost type is actually not super effective against them. Psychic type is immune to Ghost in Generation 1. The Dark type hadn't been introduced in Generation 1, so the only typing Psychic types are weak to is the Bug type, and there are only 4 Bug type moves in the game: Twin Needle, Pin Missile, Leech Life, and String Shot. Twin Needle is a Beedrill exclusive, and there are no Beedrill on NPC's teams that know the move. And then Pin Missile is just kind of bad. Like, I know that the champion's Jolteon gets it, but it's really not that good of a move. And Kadabra is going to be moving first anyways. Also, of course, Leech Life is pretty bad too. However, we are in the early game, and that's where the good stuff for Kadabra ends. Because for whatever reason, this thing starts with only Teleport and Kinesis. Now, if you've played a lot of Red and Blue, you are probably quite confused right now. And that's because Kadabra has Confusion as a starting move in those games. It also starts with Disable and Teleport, but for some reason Game Freak felt that they needed to change this starting in Pokemon Yellow. Honestly, I have no idea why, because breeding wasn't a thing yet. Really, the only thing that I can think of is the fact that they were aware people were using Game Sharks, and they wanted to nerf this thing into the ground if you decided to get it at a very low level. A lot of you always ask me the question, have I done an Alakazam playthrough in Pokemon Yellow yet, because you're expecting it to have incredibly dominant results. And yeah, they did the exact same thing to Alakazam, so it is also quite bad in Pokemon Yellow when compared to how it is in Red and Blue. So let's talk about the situation that I'm in, because obviously I have no damage dealing moves, meaning I need to deplete all of my PP so that I'm going to be able to use Struggle to level up Kadabra to level 16 so that then it can learn Confusion. Editor Scott here. I just want to mention the fact that my reset counter did not increment when I lost to the rival in the lab. This number is connected with a hotkey whenever I reset with my controller, so in this case, because I blacked out, it just did not increment automatically. There really should be one reset here because Kadabra is forced to have that loss. This is a first playthrough, so the numbers aren't that important for final ranking, so for the rest of the video, I am going to refer to this number as if there was no reset here, but just keep it in your mind that there was supposed to be. The process of doing this is fairly straightforward. I am actually going to be fighting Route 1 Pokemon today. Normally in my challenges, I turn off encounters on this route because it just negatively impacts Pokemon's time, and it makes comparing results much harder because there's always a variable number of encounters. This RNG is exclusively created by the Overworld, and it doesn't really feel fair to rank Pokemon with that as a part of the run. However, for Kadabra, these Pokemon are actually useful because I can use Teleport to escape the battle, depleting 1 PP. The faster I get rid of all my PP, the sooner I'm going to be able to use Struggle and level up. Now, the other move that I know is Kinesis, and to deplete this one, I can find a Metapod in the forest and then spam out all uses of it. This is simply because Metapod knows Harden, so it's never going to attack me, and that allows me to take no damage in the battle. And that is incredibly impactful because HP is my most important resource right now. In the early game, there is a limited supply of both money and potions, as well as items that I can pick up and sell to buy more potions. So if I run out of potions before I get Confusion, then Kadabra is going to have to spam out all of Teleport and Kinesis again, and then train until it's at red health. At that point, I would have to heal and start the process over again. One thing that you might consider here is, what if I fought a trainer and used the trainer to spam out all of the uses of Teleport? But unfortunately for Kadabra, this doesn't work. I had to lose the rival battle in the lab because there is basically no way to defeat him. I could potentially win by spamming Kinesis and then all of Teleport and then attacking with Struggle. However, the odds of this are very, very, very bad, even when I'm able to lower the opponent's accuracy. As a result, Kadabra is level 5, so any trainer I face is going to defeat me before I deplete all of Teleport's PP. So I have to encounter wild Pokemon and flee from the battle to get rid of it. Finally, at 3 minutes and 31 seconds on the clock, I use my last Teleport, and then I save the game. This is very important in case I mess up with struggle and accidentally have Kadabra knock itself out. The reason I am going to push that far is just because I want each potion to heal a maximum amount of HP so that I'm not burning potions when I'm only healing like 11 hit points. Now, the frustrations with Kadabra do not end here. I can't just battle any wild Pokemon. Instead, I am going to be searching in the forest to find Metapod. I need to knock these Pokemon out specifically so that they are not dealing chip damage to Kadabra while it attacks. This will make my potions last even further. Now, you're probably wondering how I know all of this when this is my first playthrough with Kadabra, and the reason is I did a former Alakazam vs Gengar video on my channel. By the way, if you check it out, there are lots of negative comments on it about the quality of my plays, specifically with Gengar. I was pretty new to speedrunning Pokemon games, and I hadn't even started doing multiple attempts at that point, so yeah, my play was bad. For a long time though, that video has been my least favorite of my entire catalog. The reason is pretty complicated. The premiere was an absolute disaster. My computer's RAM burnt out on the exact same day while I was trying to re-edit the video that I had to take down because there were mistakes in it. Yeah, so getting the video out to all of you was frustrating, but then once it finally did go live, I received all of your feedback on the quality of my play, and I really wanted to do redos with both of the Pokemon. After that, going forward, the idea of doing multiple attempts just slowly grew into all of my content, and now it is the standard. However, I did actually record follow-ups for both Gengar and Alakazam the day after Alakazam vs Gengar came out. Because this was a solo project at the time and I did not have a video editor, I couldn't put together a video to release in time, so I just had to move on with my release schedule, and those playthroughs were never shown on the channel. Preparing to do those runs, I figured out all of these small details with Alakazam, and now at long last I am able to apply them here with Kadabra. In Pokemon games, trainers give more experience than wild Pokemon. They have a multiplier applied to the amount of experience. It is a 1.5 times multiplier, so with Kadabra I'm going to grind against Metapod until I'm at a level that I can defeat trainer Pokemon. In this case, I reach almost level 12, and you will notice that I am further along in Veridian Forest by the mandatory bug catcher. The reason is I want to fight him first, because he is the only trainer with one Pokemon on his team. Trainers that have multiple Pokemon will be harder for Kadabra to defeat because it's going to take more recoil damage from struggle. By defeating him first, I can gain the experience from this fight and hopefully level up, but unfortunately Kadabra just doesn't quite make it. Like, it is painful how close I was. I find one more Metapod so that I can be level 13 by the time I face the second bug catcher in Veridian Forest. The reason I'm fighting him next is because he has 2 Metapod and 1 Caterpie. The Metapod can't do any damage to me, so I'm going to be able to knock them out for free, and the Caterpie is only level 6, so it's not going to do very much when it uses Tackle. Now, if you're watching this, you're going to notice that after I knock out the Caterpie, I only have 12 hit points left. Then I get a crit on the Metapod, and Kadabra goes down to 4 hit points. So I use one more struggle, and after it, Kadabra survives the fight with 2 hit points. If you thought I was overtraining to go to level 12 before starting to fight the trainers, yeah, this is why I leveled up that much, because I knew these fights were going to be very close. Now, I'm going to head back and face the first bug catcher in the forest. His Caterpies are higher leveled than the last Caterpie. However, there are only 2 of them, and Kadabra is going to 2-hit each of them with struggle. It's at this point that I should really draw your attention to how much the medium slow growth rate helps Kadabra in this game. If it had the medium fast or slow growth rate, this early game would take significantly longer. The reason is that I would run out of potions long before I would reach level 16. So right now, Kadabra is level 14, and after I defeat this Metapod, I'm going to be about halfway through that level, so I have 1.5 left to go. When I open my inventory, you will notice that I only have 2 potions left, so the time that I'm going to be able to heal Kadabra is starting to run out. Now, I do want to draw your attention to the fact that I have an antidote and a Pokeball in my inventory. Those were 2 items that I collected in Veridian Forest, the hidden antidote as well as the Pokeball that's over by the lass. I have specifically collected these items so that I can head to the Pokemart in Veridian City and sell them for money. After all the trainers that I have fought in the forest, I now can afford 1 more potion. Yes, these trainers give absolutely terrible cash rewards for defeating them. The next step in the plan is to head to Route 22 and face the rival. He has a level 9 Spearow and a level 8 Eevee, which are both going to give great experience to Kadabra. This allows me to level up to level 15, so only one more to go. Also, on my way back to Veridian City, I run into a Nidoran, which I knock out with Kadabra to gain a little bit more experience and push my health down to 5. And now I'm going to head back to Pallet Town. I'm going to walk back, but I could have used Teleport to get back because I've not healed at a Pokemon Center yet. The reason I'm heading back to Pallet Town is that Professor Oak is going to give me 5 free Pokeballs, which I'm going to be able to sell for 500 Pokedollars. Now, you might be wondering why he has never given you 5 Pokeballs in any of your playthroughs, so I should explain the conditions by which he gives these to you. The player has to have not caught a Pokemon or evolved a Pokemon, so I can only have 1 Pokemon registered in my Pokedex. The second requirement is that I need to not have any Pokeballs in my inventory, which is why I sold the Pokeball and the antidote earlier on. Finally, the player needs to have defeated the rival on Route 22. If all of these conditions are true, Professor Oak will give you the courtesy Pokeballs. Selling those brings my total Pokedollars to 860, which right now seems a little bit unfortunate, but don't worry, there are still actually 3 trainers that I haven't fought. I didn't fight the Pokemon Yellow exclusive Bug Catcher or the Junior Trainer in Brock's gym. In this case, I think it makes the most sense to fight the Bug Catcher that is exclusive to Yellow version. His team is not very good, and defeating those Pokemon brings Kadabra painfully close to level 16. The money from this fight allows me to buy 1 more potion in Pewter City and use it on Kadabra to gain back a little bit more health. And all of this work finally at long last culminates in Brock's gym, where after using the final potion, I can knock out the Diglett, just barely I will mention, which levels Kadabra up to level 16, where it learns Confusion mid-battle, and then it can use this powerful same type attack bonus special move to one-shot the following Sandshrew. Now I'm out of healing items, but I don't want to waste any more time, so let's jump right into the battle against Brock. When Kadabra is overleveled and has a special move, it is really good. I one-shot the Geodude, Brock sends in his Onix, I use Confusion, and I one-shot it as well, earning myself the Boulder Badge. And from here, I am not going to slow down. Instead of healing in Pewter City, I'm going to head right out onto Route 3 and start one-shotting all of the Pokemon here. By the way, there are 4 mandatory trainers here, and not a single one of their Pokemon survives a hit from Kadabra. In Mount Moon, I usually fight some optional trainers, like 1 or 2 depending on the Pokemon that I'm running, but since Kadabra is such a beast, has an amazing growth rate, and it had to train extensively for Brock, I am going to be skipping all of the optional trainers here today. I do grab an optional item though, which is the TM for Mega Punch, which I teach to Kadabra right away. This is just in case I fight a Pokemon that I can't do good damage to with Confusion. Like for example, whenever I fight another Psychic type, Confusion is just not going to be the best choice because usually those Psychic types have high special stats themselves. After that, Kadabra continues its spree, one-shotting all of the mandatory Pokemon at the end of the cave, and with that it is level 20 and heading into Cerulean City. There's a choice here, which isn't really a choice. I could face Misty, but her Pokemon have decent special stats, and the Starmie resists Confusion, so obviously the better choice is to face the rival now. Confusion one-hits the Spearow, it one-hits the following Sandshrew, it one-hits the Rattata. It does fail to knock out the Eevee, but it doesn't really matter, I still take it out on the second turn. From here, we're going to start making major jumps through the footage because the NPCs in this section of the game are not going to be an issue for Kadabra. I'll mention one optional battle that I do towards the end of Route 25, which is basically the route headed to Bill's house. I usually call this Nugget Bridge, but it technically isn't Nugget Bridge. I fight this hiker because all of his Pokemon are easy to one-hit, giving Kadabra decent experience, plus then I can move this Junior Trainer out of the way and grab the TM for Seismic Toss. Looking back on this playthrough, I think I probably should have skipped Mega Punch to just save a little bit of time, and then use Seismic Toss as my go-to move against Psychic types. That seems very weird when we consider type interaction, but because of Kadabra's very low attack stat, it is probably going to be doing more damage with this move against Pokemon that resist Psychic. Also, Mega Punch has a 15% chance to miss, so it's more like Miss Punch, so I really don't want to be using it. It is important here to note that I teach Seismic Toss over Kinesis and I keep Teleport on my moveset. That's actually because Teleport has some utility for Kadabra. That seems very weird to say because this move usually seems completely useless, but in Pokemon Yellow they patched out the ability to dig or use escape ropes out of Bill's house. With Kadabra I can just exit the house, use Teleport to head back to Cerulean City, and now I'm ready to face Misty. Alright, so Staryu's a mono water type, obviously just going to use Confusion here. It almost knocks the starfish out. It survives on a sliver of health, it gets confused, doesn't hit itself, does a little bit of damage to Kadabra, and then I finish it off. Okay, so time for the Starmie. I go for Seismic Toss, doing more than a third. By the way, it has 59 HP, so if you're above level 19, you are always going to knock it out with 3 uses of Seismic Toss. Another reason this move is really good against Misty is because she loves to use X defense as well as Harden on the Starmie. With a fixed damage move, I am completely bypassing those stat changes, and as a result, I earn myself another easy gym badge. And things are only going to get easier and easier for Kadabra. On only the next route, it levels up to level 27 where it learns Psybeam. And at this point, I should probably go through the rest of Kadabra's move pool because I didn't do that at the beginning of the video like I normally do. It learns Recover, probably the best healing move in the entire game at level 31. It gets Psychic at level 38 and Reflect at level 42 in case I need to reduce damage from any physical moves. Honestly, it is a pretty good level up learn set. However, through TMs and HMs, it also gets access to some decent coverage moves. It has the Generation 1 staple Body Slam, which I am going to grab on the SSN. I'm also going to pick up Rest. I'm doing that first. That's my order of operations here, just so I don't forget something. I like to have Rest just in case in most first playthroughs, so I was kind of on autopilot here. Recover is obviously going to be the better choice, so yeah, heading over here just was a waste of time. After that, I completely stomp the rival using Psybeam and head into Surge's gym for what is hopefully going to be another easy gym badge. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but Surge actually might be the scariest gym leader that I have faced to this point with Kadabra. There are a couple reasons for that. Number one, Raichu has decent specials, so it's not going to take very much damage from my Psychic type moves. As you can see, I'm doing about half. Another complicating factor is that Surge can use X speed so that Raichu moves first. The third and final complicating factor is that the Raichu has good attack, and it also has great physical moves. In this case, Mega Punch and Mega Kick. So there is a world where Surge just Mega Kicks right away, knocks Kadabra out, and that's it. In this case though, he goes for Mega Punch. However, it gets a critical hit, but Kadabra hangs on red health, giving it one more attack, but in this case, Psybeam previously confused and self-inflicted damage finishes the Raichu off. Okay, so I am 3 for 3 in gym battles with Kadabra. I teleport back to Cerulean City, once again utilizing this normally useless move, and now I am off towards Lavender Town. Honestly here, everything is really easy. I one-shot all the Rapping Lasses Pokemon. Against the first Pokemaniac in the tunnel, the Slowbone or Bone Slow guy, depending on which name you prefer, the fight is fittingly slow, but luckily very easy. The self-destructing Hiker, of course, is no problem because Psybeam one-hits all of his Pokemon, and during this fight I get a chance to learn Recover, which I now put in the place of Teleport because this move has served its use. Alright, are you ready for Kadabra to get another Accelerant? Because in the mid-game, after I reach Celadon City, I can buy myself a drink in the department store and then head to Saffron City to pick up the TM for Psychic. By the way, I'm talking about this now because I completely skipped the hideout with Kadabra. I think that is just going to waste time. The medium slow growth rate is leveling it up fast enough. I do not need an additional rare candy. Okay, so in Pokemon Tower, we're just going to watch Kadabra completely destroy the rival. He doesn't stand any chance here. I can actually just use Psybeam against a lot of his Pokemon and get knockouts. I am keeping both of these moves on my set just because Psychic doesn't have that many uses, and Psybeam is more than powerful enough for most NPC's Pokemon, so this just allows me to skip a few more center heals to save some time. Of course, because Generation 1 decided to be really weird with all of the types in the game, the Ghastly line is actually very easy for Kadabra to go up against. I feel like they should have made the Ghost type resist Psychic type moves, and then not given the Ghastly the Poison type if they actually wanted the player to have something available to them that would counter Psychic types. I don't know, it's kind of strange. I get it, they probably gave the Ghastly the Poison type so that the Ghost Pokemon could not become poisoned themselves, because that doesn't make very much sense, and it continues to make no sense in modern Pokemon games. After completely crushing Jesse and James, I grab the Pokeflute, head to Cycling Road, where I skip all of the trainers. I quickly journey through the Safari Zone, and then I dig back to Celadon City to take on Erica. Okay, so I don't expect any problems here. I actually didn't heal going into the battle because I was so confident. I two-shot the Tangela with Psychic, Move on to the Weepinbell, who is a poison type as well, so I'm just able to one-shot it with Psychic, as well as the following Gloom, which is a little bit more bulky. Anyways, yeah, that's Eric out of the way, so another easy gym badge. There might actually be a world where Kadabra goes through a first playthrough with 0 resets. I can't think of a time when that has happened for me in Generation 1, so this potentially could be a first for the channel. In Sylph, I fight the guy with Machoke so I can get 1 rare candy. This guy just makes sense to fight, I think. You also get a Carbos, like why not fight him? After that, I fight only the Arbok trainer grabbing the card key, and then before I face the rival, I actually leave a bunch of experience on the table. Maybe I shouldn't have done this, but I use rare candies just to boost Kadabra up to level 40 to give it a little bit more of a punch for this battle. In the mid-game, this is probably one of the hardest non-gym leader fights. I would say that Blaine and Koga are of similar difficulty, but it always feels like there are more problems in this battle. Magneton can paralyze, Ninetales can burn you with Ember. I guess it can also just roar, so that Pokemon's not very good. Kadabra is usually super effective. Today, I'm just going to have to use Seismic Toss to knock it out. Conveniently, using rare candies up to level 40 gives me a 2-shot with this move. That is, if the Kadabra doesn't just spam Recover. Luckily, in this case, it only uses it once, and then I finish it off. The only Pokemon he has left is Vaporeon. It's quite tanky, it has so much HP and an incredible special stat to back it up. As a result, I'm not able to 2-hit with Psychic. However, because Vaporeon is mostly a special attacker, I'm not going to take very much damage from any of its moves, so I take it out over 3 hits, and with that, I can completely crush my way through the rest of the rocket portion of the game. Against Giovanni, Kadabra has the chance to naturally learn Reflect. I could have put this in the place of Psybeam, but in the moment I thought that this wasn't a good choice, just because I can buy the TM for it, so I'd rather have the extra attacking move for now. That'll really help me out in case I do want to do some extra training if I run into an obstacle later on. Okay, next is Koga's gym. There are some annoying jugglers in here with Psychic-type Pokemon. Seismic Toss 2 hits all of their Pokemon. Then this Kadabra actually disables Seismic Toss, which is very lucky for it, because in Generation 1, Disable randomly selects a move. Yeah, it didn't disable this because I was using it, it just got lucky. Still, Kadabra is such a beast that Psychic is doing a lot of damage to these Psychic types. Actually, more than Seismic Toss, which says a lot about how focused in Special Kadabra is. Alright, so with those trainers out of the way, let's take on Koga. You might expect this fight to be hard because Koga is essentially a bug-type gym leader in Generation 1. But that is most likely not going to be the case. I didn't even heal for this fight because I was so confident. I one-hit all of the Venonats, move on to the Venomoth, where I use Psychic. However, this powerful Ghost Dark-type just barely survives the hit and strikes back with a super effective Leech Life. And while this typically weak move does do a lot of damage to Kadabra, it isn't enough to get the KO, and that gives me one more Psychic, which knocks the Venomoth out. With Koga's speed boost, I am now faster than all of Sabrina's Pokemon, even the Alakazam, so I can just head there next and take what should be a fairly easy victory. Well, I guess Seismic Toss is not quite to hitting the Abra. I needed to be level 45 for that. I probably should have just used a rare candy here to get that extra level so that I would have a little bit more consistency. However, I still am able to take out the Abra without having my accuracy dropped, but then against the Kadabra, it does get a Kinesis in. Still, I managed to take it out and move on to her final Pokemon, Alakazam. Now I should note that in Pokemon Yellow, Sabrina had her Good AI removed, which is actually a very good thing for Kadabra. With Good AI, Sabrina would only choose Recover, whereas without it, she is going to be randomizing, so in this case, she has a chance not to heal the Alakazam, and I am waiting for that so that I can knock it out with Seismic Toss. While I do that, I want to describe something really funny about Red and Blue. So if you fight the Champion's Alakazam, you will notice that he is randomizing his moves if you are using a Psychic type, but if you fight Sabrina's Alakazam, she will only be using Recover. I was very confused about this, so I asked one of the people who helps me with programming, Weil, to dig into it a little bit, and what it turns out to be is that Sabrina's Alakazam has Psywave, whereas the Champion's does not. When AI Modification 3 or Good AI checks the moves, it will first look to see if it has something super effective. If it doesn't, then it will deprioritize moves that are not very effective, provided that there is no alternative. In this case, it sees Psywave and goes, hey, that's an alternative. And then there is a weird bug, so Psywave downvotes itself, and the only remaining move is Recover, so Sabrina spams Recover. Whereas against the champion, his Alakazam does not have Psywave, so it finds no alternative move and just randomizes its move selection. I honestly find the depths of Generation 1 incredibly interesting. I hope you do too. Okay, so Kadabra defeats the Alakazam, and with that I have cleared 6 of 8 gym leaders with no resets. However, the next one is Blaine, and he is very challenging in Pokemon Yellow, so let's see how this goes. Up first is Ninetales. I go for Psychic, and it just barely does not get the one hit. Ninetales uses Tail Whip, lowering Kadabra's already pathetic defense stat, and then I finish off Blaine's lead. I'm a bit worried because Rapidash and Arcanine have a lot of attack, and they also know Takedown. These moves are going to hit really hard. I go for Psychic on the Rapidash. It does a little bit more than half. It goes for Takedown, and Kadabra faints. Okay, that was a critical hit, but I think I probably would have gone down without a crit anyways. This is sadly not going to be a reset-free playthrough. I tried the fight again. This time the Ninetales uses a Flamethrower, doing a little bit. The Rapidash uses Stomp, taking me under half health, and then the Arcanine comes out. Now against it, I decided to use Recover. I was trying to get back to full health because eventually this thing is going to use Reflect, doing no damage to me, and then I'll have decent health. It does fairly early on. I take the opportunity to use Psychic, which lowers Arcanine's special, and as a result, on the next turn, I finish it off, earning myself the Volcano badge. And this one gives a 12.5% boost to my special stat, so Kadabra just got even better. So let's see how it does against Giovanni, the final gym leader. Dugtrio is first, and this thing actually has decent special, which I always find surprising because it is a ground type. I'm used to them having bad special stats. As a result, it survives a single Psychic on a sliver of health, strikes back with Earthquake, and this one gets a crit, knocking Kadabra out. However, Giovanni also has a 25% chance of using a guard spec, so that's what happens in the next fight, and I take out the Dugtrio for free. I crit the Persian, knocking it out in a single hit, and from there I have super effective damage against both of the Nidos, finishing them off in single hits. All that's left is Rhydon. Now, while this thing does have low special, and I have high special, I don't have a type advantage against it, so I think it's going to survive. And in this case it does, with actually a decent amount of health. And that allows this Pokemon with an absolutely monstrous stat to hit a Rock Slide, which gets the same type attack bonus against Kadabra. And yeah, Kadabra survives on 2 hit points and defeats Giovanni. So it's time to face the rival on Route 22. And in this battle, we are going up against his Vaporeon team, which is very rare on this channel. The reason I never face it is that you have to lose the lab battle, and that's just not really something most Pokemon can or want to do. With Kadabra though, I didn't have a choice. So remember the Pin Missile that I mentioned Jolteon has? Yeah, I'm never going to face the Jolteon team, so there's no worries about Pin Missile. However, the Vaporeon is actually annoying in its own way because it knows Hydro Pump, which with the same type attack bonus does a lot to Kadabra, around half. This means that when it's using Hydro Pump, I should be using Recover, and I am basically just praying that it doesn't crit here. However, it can also miss, and when it does, I can strike back, doing a lot of damage. That Psychic also lowers its special, so Hydro Pump is going to be hitting for less now. However, the Vaporeon just goes for Acid Armor, and I finish it off. Alright, so as I explore Victory Road, I just want to compare Kadabra with Haunter. These two always felt like counterparts to me. There are 4 trait evolutions in Generation 1, 2 of them are physical attackers, and 2 of them are special attackers. With Haunter, it can go through the game on minimum battles, but it is relying heavily on Hypnosis luck to do that. The reason it has to rely on Hypnosis is that it just isn't hitting hard enough to be able to knock out most Pokemon in a single hit. Now the reason Haunter wasn't dealing enough damage is largely because it doesn't get any same type attack bonus moves. Like, imagine if Ghost type was a special type and it had Shadow Ball. It would be so good in Generation 1. And that, I think, is one of the major differences between these two playthroughs. Kadabra just feels more consistent. Now, granted, it did have to waste like 18 minutes of time training just to beat Brock, but beyond that, everything has felt quite easy, with only single resets occurring at Blaine as well as Giovanni. However, 4 of the strongest trainers in the game are still ahead of it, so I am wondering if potentially its frail nature might come back to get it when it starts to get out-leveled by the opponent's Pokemon significantly. Well, the only way to find out is to jump into the league, so let's do this. For the battle against Lorelei, I have taught Mimic in the place of Psybeam because I no longer need it. Against the Dugong, I go for Psychic right away, doing half, and then the Dugong does half back to me. Okay, that was what I was scared of. Cloister is next. I figured that I would one-hit, but it survives? Okay, so Kadabra is starting to slow down. But don't worry, I am not going to be finished off by the Slowbro. Her AI here is actually going to prevent it from being useful in any meaningful way. She can see that psychic moves are not very effective, so when the game looks for an alternative neutrally effective damage dealing move, it finds Surf and then randomizes between her two water type moves. As a result, I can just mimic Amnesia, set up for free. Whenever she uses Surf, it does even less damage, and then I can use Recover to heal and Psychic to sweep. And this Psychic Sweep is so powerful that it just continues all the way through the next room into the chamber with Agatha. Alright, so this fight where Kadabra, the Psychic type, should have a type disadvantage is actually a fight where I have a type advantage because all of her Pokemon are poison types. Much like Koga, she's very confused about which type specialty she has. Now, Agatha does not have AI Modification 3, so she's just randomly selecting her moves. That does mean that the ghosts can use Lick and do no damage to me, which is absolutely hilarious. Either way though, it doesn't really matter. I can just set up Substitute and then sweep her entire team with Psychic. Okay, so we've arrived at Lance, and here I have 5 rare candies left. I figured that I could lose to him because right now I am slower than his Aerodactyl. In yellow version, its moveset is quite good, so I want to be able to move first against it. As a result, I'm just going to burn all the rare candies now and go up to level 58 before fighting him. Up first is Gyarados. I just really want this thing not to use Hyper Beam. I go for Psychic doing half and then Gyarados picks Hyper Beam. Yeah, of course it does. It does massive damage. However, Kadabra survives on red health. And then I make a signature Scott's Thoughts misplay by not using Recover to heal on the turn that it is recharging. Watching this footage made me so frustrated. I can really understand why a lot of you get frustrated when I do things like this. Next is the first Dragonair. Now this thing does no Hyper Beam. I chanced it here by healing with Recover. It goes for Hyper Beam. Kadabra once again just barely survives, and then on the turn that it recharges, I heal, getting me back to green health, where I can use Psychic to take it down to a sliver. He uses Hyper Beam again, and I'm going to have to heal one more time on the recharge turn before knocking it out. With it out of the way, I can move on to the second Dragonair, Steel Ice Beam, get hit by a Hyper Beam, which I just barely survived for a third time. And from there, Ice Beam sweeps the rest of Lance's Pokemon, and Kadabra has made it to the champion. This is typically the hardest fight in Pokemon Yellow. Now, I think it's hilarious how it starts. I just barely don't knock out the Sand Slash, then it uses Poison Sting. Well done. I really should have used Slash or Earthquake. I might have actually lost if it had, but it doesn't, so I knock it out. Next is the Champion's Alakazam. I have kept Seismic Toss on my moveset throughout the entire playthrough, just so that I can defeat it quickly, as well as the following Executor. As I mentioned before, it's randomizing its move choices. It doesn't do that much or lower my accuracy, so I move on to the Grass type. Things always kind of slow down in the fight here. Executor's Stomp is actually hitting quite hard, so I'm just going to use Recover to heal as much as I can. Eventually it's going to use something else like Barrage or Leech Seed. In this case though, it won't be using Hypnosis because it can see that I'm a Psychic type and that that's a Psychic type move. It takes a while, but I do finish it off and move on to his final 3 Pokemon. Against the Ninetales, I Recover and then use Psychic twice to finish it off. Okay, so now Magneton, the one and only. This thing is so frustrating in a solo run. I crit it with Psychic, but that still isn't enough to knock it out. It hits Swift, taking Kadabra to half health, and then it goes down. Alright, Vaporeon is last. Same problem as last time, it has Hydro Pump. Although this time, it goes for Quick Attack, which actually does a surprising amount because my defense has been lowered. So I take my time recovering to full health, and then I use Psychic 3 times, finishing it off. And Kadabra clocks in with a first playthrough time of 56 minutes and 43 seconds, with 2 resets at level 60. This took 3 hours and 42 minutes of game time. From here, things are going to get very interesting. With Kadabra, I didn't do my usual second playthrough and then call it a day. I came back and continued doing playthroughs over about a period of 2 months. I wasn't really sure how to optimize this thing, largely because it takes a long time to defeat Brock, and you can't really speed that up other than running into Metapods faster, which is purely due to luck. Beyond that, with Kadabra, what do? You don't really have any training to cut out because it doesn't beat the game at a particularly high level, and I'm not doing a lot of optional battles. Also, all of the fights until the champion are incredibly straightforward. Kadabra just sort of crushes everything. And then the champion just shows up and he's like, actually, I'm really difficult. I lead with a Sand Slash. It does so much physical damage. And then following that, there's an Alakazam, which you're going to have to knock out over probably 3 turns. Following that, there's an Executor, which can be really annoying, occasionally critical hitting with Stomp. Then there's likely a Ninetales, followed by a Magneton that can paralyze. And finally a Vaporeon, which there is essentially no way around with regular human luck. This thing can hit incredibly powerful Hydro Pumps and knock you out if you have gotten lucky to that point in the fight. I spent a lot of time earlier in this video talking so much about how I optimized the Brock split, and that is all largely unchanged. I just have to get to Brock with Confusion at level 16 and then defeat him. From there, the game is straightforward. I don't really know what else to say about it. Seismic Toss is better than Body Slam and Dig. I looked at all the damage ranges on that. So the optional trainer in order to get it is definitely worth it. Then later on in the playthrough, in the mid-game, I have to choose how much optional training I'm doing. I filmed the second run with Kadabra, which I ended up using save states in just to test a few things out, so that is not going to be a valid result. Then in my third Kadabra playthrough, I came back and did a bunch of my old mid-game battles, which are not particularly optimal. This strategy brought me to level 63 to face the champion. The reason this level is very important is because then Kadabra is going to be able to one-hit the Sand Slash with Psychic. Just one level lower at 62, it'll have an 84% chance to one-hit, and I really do not want to miss that hit. Because against the Alakazam, I need 3 turns of Seismic Toss to hit, and I really need Alakazam not to use Kinesis. If it uses Kinesis, this fight gets so much harder, and it is essentially a loss. From there, the Executor can set up Leech Seed, drain your health, crit with Stomp. It is so awful. Ninetales can confuse you, lower your defense with Tail Whip, hit even harder with Quick Attack as a result, and to make matters worse, it can trap you in Fire Spin, stacking up Leech Seed's damage. If you manage to make it through his first 4 Pokemon, Magneton comes out, it is not going to go down to a single hit, there is no way for you to set up, so it can lower your defense with Screech to hit very hard with Swift, or help Vaporeon hit with Quick Attack, or it can paralyze you or hit with Thunderbolt for decent damage. If you make it past all of that, you still have to defeat the Vaporeon, which can do so much damage with Hydro Pump. Now this is all possible, as you are currently seeing play out on screen right now. This fight and this run overall were so lucky. I end up defeating the Vaporeon and clocking in with a time of 56 minutes and 38 seconds. For anyone who's keeping track, that is 5 seconds faster than my first playthrough. This is probably the most underwhelming second playthrough result I have ever got. I think it would have been preferable here if I got a worse time. 5 seconds is just so little. It feels like, I don't know, just an insult. It's like, yeah, you basically did the exact same performance. Great job getting less resets, but the extra training for level 63 for the champion really did slow you down. This is a game time of 3 hours and 44 minutes, and I figured that I could get that time lower, but I had to take a break from Kadabra. After all, the Brock split is not very fun. Over the next month, I would dedicate a lot of my time in Pokemon Yellow to studying the mid-game trainers and where to gain the best possible experience yields. So when I came back on November 3rd after finishing the Monster Mash video, I figured that I was going to do significantly better with Kadabra in its 4th playthrough, technically the 3rd official playthrough. In this case, the early game is unchanged. By the way, I have 2 resets here against the rival on Route 22. Kind of annoying, but overall nothing I could do about it. But there is something I can do to help Kadabra out with training in the mid-game, and that is fighting the good trainers. In this case on Cycling Road, I fight 2 bikers, the guy with Wheezing, Coughing, and Wheezing, and then the guy with 5 Pokemon. These 2 give incredible experience yields. After that, inside Erica's gym, I fight the Cool Trainer. She has better experience yields than any of the other trainers, and then I defeat Erica. This leads me to Sylph instead of the dojo. The dojo is actually kind of out of the way, and the experience yields aren't as good as targeting specific trainers in here. I fight the guy with the Machoke to get the rare candy, then the Arbok person, who is mandatory. After that, I complete 2 optional battles. The first one is against the Hypno Rocket for good experience yields, and the second one is the guy with the Electrode and the Wheezing right by the teleport pad that leads to the rival. Then I use 7 rare candies to bring Kadabra up to level 45. This makes the rival very easy. After that I head to Koga's gym, defeating the one tamer with really good experience yields. Koga is an easy sweep, I have guaranteed 1 hits on all of his Pokemon. After that I head to Blaine, who I defeat, and then I face Sabrina. Small interesting note here, I really should be using Toxic against Sabrina's Alakazam. I am not in this case because I'm trying to learn to organize my bag better. The reason this matters is because whenever I teach Strength, I actually toss Toxic so that the cursor resets to the top of the bag, making it fewer actions to get to the Super Repels when I surf to Cinnabar Island. As a result, I tossed Toxic in this playthrough, but it doesn't actually end up mattering because I get very lucky against Alakazam and it goes down. Beyond this, there are only 2 more optional trainers. After I defeat the rival on Route 22 in Victory Road, I face the Cool Trainer with the Victory Bell line, and then the Cool Trainer right beside her who has Water-type Pokemon. This brings Kadabra up to level 54, and I can then use 4 rare candies before Lorelei to be level 58. Of course, the league is very simple. I make it back to the champion, and this time going into it, Kadabra is only level 61, but this still coincidentally gives a 61% chance to one-hit the Sand Slash, so I figured that this would be enough. After all, I don't want to go too overboard to try and get an excellent damage range when it's going to cost a lot of time. After all, I am trying to shave seconds off of this playthrough. In this case, I am going into the battle against the champion under 52 minutes. That being said, the Alakazam does get a Kinesis off against me. I figured that I would continue trying in this battle just because of how good my time was. I was really searching for that sub 55 minute time and I wanted to push for it. Unfortunately for me, this doesn't end up well because the Alakazam goes for Kinesis 2 more times before I knock it out, so I just decided to reset and cut my losses. In the next fight I am able to get significantly further, but still having a Kinesis. The Magneton goes for Thunderbolt after I miss, and it knocks me out, causing another reset. Alright, the clock is still under 55 minutes, but this champion fight is also very long. Against Alakazam, I get much luckier this time, finishing it off without any Kinesis. So this is probably it. I'm going to do it. I have to use Recover to be careful on the Exeggutor, and then it crits me and knocks me out from over half health. Yeah, this fight is absolutely awful with Kadabra. So I have 5 resets and the clock is about to tick over 55 minutes. In this case, the final time that I'm going to clock in with is absolutely hilarious. It ends up being 56 minutes and 34 seconds. Once again, if you're keeping track, that is 4 seconds faster than my previous playthrough and 9 seconds faster than my first playthrough. Once again, Kadabra just seems to resist optimization. I stopped filming here and decided that this was just going to be Kadabra's results. I really couldn't spend more time doing a 5th playthrough. After all, I have to keep to my schedule. But then I got thinking about it more and more, and I realized that Mimic is essentially useless during the champion fight. And since this move is dead weight, there is a potential spot for me to fill with a different move that could solve some other type of niche. In this case, what if I put Reflect in the place of Mimic so I can minimize the damage from Exeggutor's attacks, allowing me to more easily heal, improving the consistency of the fight overall. I also made another dramatic change in this fight. Since I need to get through the Alakazam with luck, I just need to hit 3 Seismic Tosses. What if I go into the battle at a lower level, in this case level 60, and this actually cut all of the optional training out of the mid-game. I literally fight none of those trainers. I just train for Brock, then do minimum battles all the way to the champion, using 9 rare candies right before Blaine, and then 2 more right before the champion. With this routing, I have a 53% chance to one-shot the Sand Slash, so sometimes it is going to survive and do massive damage with either Slash or Earthquake. That being said, I can take things fairly slow against the Alakazam. It's not going to do a lot of damage to me. If I have to, I will use Recover here, and then I can use Seismic Toss to knock it out. In this playthrough, I made a deal with myself, which is if I get hit by Kinesis, I am just going to immediately reset. And after the first reset, if you just look at the time, you're going to realize that the exact same scenario is once again playing out. I cut so many trainers from the mid-game, and Kadabra is still going to clock in with the exact same time. I'm sure you're like, how is this possible? That doesn't seem to make sense. Well, in this case, my Brock split was 2 minutes slower because I got less lucky finding Metapods in the forest. This playthrough proves that the Brock split result, in combination with how well you do against the champion, are basically the only determining factors in how well Kadabra does. I honestly could see a result with a level 63 Kadabra beating a result with, say, a level 60 Kadabra, just like this. And yeah, so in this playthrough, technically my 4th legitimate playthrough and my 5th total playthrough with Kadabra, it is able to get a time of 56 minutes and 55 seconds. Okay, finally the game gave me what I wanted. This one is a worse result. This one is 8 seconds slower than my first playthrough. It's at this point that I thought up a third, final option to make the champion slightly more consistent. If Kinesis is truly the worst thing that can happen from the Alakazam, then we want to minimize time in battle against it. Well, here is how my final champion fight went. For this fight, I need a strategy that is going to allow me to knock out the Alakazam and Exeggutor quickly, plus survive hits from the Sand Slash so I can use Mimic to steal Slash. To do that, I am using Reflect in the place of Seismic Toss. With this setup move, I am not taking that much damage anymore, then I can steal Slash, using Recover to heal if I absolutely have to. This also means that Kadabra doesn't really need to be a higher level in order to defeat the Sand Slash in a single hit. I am planning to survive here. The only problems with this plan are if it crits with either Slash or Earthquake. Also, this isn't a guarantee because once I make it to the Alakazam, I do have to get by Kinesis. In the first battle, it lowers my accuracy, so I reset right away, saving as much time as is possible. In the next fight, Sandslash has poisoned me, which by the way bleeds a little bit of time because the poison animation plays and the text has to scroll. That being said, I do make it to the Exeggutor and now I can use Slash to knock it out, provided I don't have to heal too much due to Leech Seed or poison damage. In this case, I don't run out of PP, I'm able to knock it out and move on to the Ninetales. I take things fairly slow here, using Psychic to eventually knock it out and move on to the Magneton. With poison, I'm immune to its Thunder Wave, so it can't really end the fight. I proceed to the Vaporeon, which I knock out using Psychic, and with that, Kadabra has clocked in with a time of 54 minutes and 34 seconds, with 3 resets at level 61. This is a game time of 3 hours and 29 minutes. So after 6 total playthroughs, I was able to get its time under 55 minutes, but not significantly so. I've said before that this thing feels like it's on rails. That is because it's like a train. You get on, it goes along a prescribed route to a prescribed destination in a prescribed amount of time. There is very little that I can do to change how fast it goes. For example, in this final run, I got a quite good Brock split, and I also fought very few mandatory trainers, but still its time was very close to my other playthroughs. So for Kadabra, that is going to be it. We are going to rank it based on these results. With a time under 55 minutes, it's able to earn itself the last spot in the B tier, just behind Gyarados. Funnily enough, that is another Pokemon that was really badly impacted by the moveset changes from Pokemon Red and Blue into Pokemon Yellow. Gyarados starting only with Tackle makes it go so much slower than it deserves. And funnily enough, at this point, Bellsprout is just behind these two Pokemon, but I think when I replay Bellsprout, it's going to end up going faster, which is kind of an insult. It is, after all, a really good first stage Pokemon. If you support me on Patreon or through YouTube memberships, thank you so much. It means the world to me. Now, if you've made it this far in the video, you're incredible. So let's watch Kadabra face Professor Oak. I recorded this footage after my 5th playthrough, so we are just going to go with that for now. I didn't want to record a whole other file when this fight is largely unchanged. Against Tauros, I want to knock it out as quickly as possible so that I don't get hit by strong physical moves. After that, Professor Oak sends in his Exeggutor. He has AI modification 3, so he is never going to use Hypnosis, instead flipping a coin between Barrage and Stomp. Both of these moves don't do very much. In this case, my Kadabra still has Seismic Toss, so I can use that here. If I didn't have this move, I could just use Mimic to steal Stomp and knock the Exeggutor out with it, or Psychic because the occasional special drop would be good. Recover gives me the ability to last long enough to finish it off and move on to the Arcanine. And from here, things are pretty straightforward. I'm going to use Psychic to knock it out over 2 turns, Recover against the Charizard right away so that I can survive any of its hits. It locks itself into Rage, which is not a very good move, so I basically knock it out for free. All that's left is Gyarados, and for this one I basically just need to dodge a Hyper Beam. As long as it doesn't choose this move, I'm gonna be fine, and in this case, it doesn't. So Kadabra defeats Professor Oak. Okay, so that is it for Pokemon Yellow, at least for a little bit. Next, we are heading to Crystal to do all of the baby Pokemon. After that series concludes, we'll be back to Yellow version again for Starmie vs Tentacruel. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow for Togepi and Pokemon Crystal.